Welcome to the second hour episode of Driving to the Res
with your favorite hosts,
Larry
and
Inelia.
Larry and Inelia.
And
that would be your
and Inelia.
Yay!
Believe it or not, that was completely unrehearsed.
Completely. You wouldn't believe it, but it actually was unrehearsed. Yes. So super exciting.
Right.
This is a sample episode that we are releasing as a second hour, but it's actually our podcast this Monday.
It's what our second hour will be like.
It will be.
I mean, I'm going to say it's similar to what our second hour is going to be like, but I hope that this doesn't happen every time.
So we're going to look at a regression that you did regarding. Remember what happened?
We need to back up a little bit.
Let's back up.
Okay. So if you remember last week, we were talking about waking up in the morning with your hair brushed the wrong way.
Yes.
Which in itself, a big deal. Your hair's brushed the wrong way. So what?
Perfectly brushed this
wrong way. Well, it's perfectly brushed the wrong way. I mean, there are circumstances where men wake up in the morning and their hair is perfect. But usually it's only because they've cut their hair almost all the way off. The buzz cut. That's what they do in the Coast Guard or the Army or whatever. So that you wake up, you get out of bed, you put on your hat, and you're already dressed. It's like, go.
Yeah.
In this case, my hair is a little bit longer. It's not exactly
very long,
super long or super short, but it doesn't wake up in the morning after a shower perfectly brushed. No which way. It's sticking up here and a little bit in there.
And the back.
Occasionally. Yeah. So this morning, I woke up and I felt my hair was weird. You can feel your hair is feels weird.
Yeah.
Usually you just put a hat on and just go on with your day.
Yeah.
Until your wife says, hey, your hair's sticking up all over the place.
Because you asked her and I keep forgetting.
Yeah.
Actually, what happens is, Inelia, you let me go around with crazy hair all day long.
I didn't say anything.
I didn't tell you. Didn't I tell you to let me know? Oh, I didn't notice. Sorry. So we were talking about your hair going crazy. But anyways, yes.
Yeah, so, it's one of those things. I walk by the mirror because my hair is feeling weird. And I think, well, I'll just take care of myself. I'm a grown up. I can do it. I can fix my own hair. Nobody has to tell me. I look in the mirror and it's perfect.
Completely perfect.
It's completely perfect, but backwards.
Yes.
I look in the mirror. It's like this right now. So you can see what it would look like. It's like perfect. Yeah. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's okay. It's perfect.
But
and I thought that's really strange. It's perfect and backwards.
Yeah. It was the other way.
There's no way for that to be done. In laying in bed, rolling around. We wake up with wet hair and it's perfect, but backwards.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's still strange, but okay.
He says, you never guess what happened.
I told you, didn't I?
Never happened. I mean, maybe once in my entire life, but Jesus, this is so strange. Look at my hair; it's perfect. It's the other way around.
What were you thinking?
Honey. Okay, honey.
Okay, honey.
You say so.
It's
all right.
Unless it's happening to you, you don't really understand.
Right.
I mean, get up in the morning tomorrow and tell me how your hair looks. Go look in the mirror, but make sure you take a shower right before you go to bed. Make sure it's a bit wet.
Yeah.
And go to bed and wake up in the morning and tell me what your hair looks like. We can take a picture and put it on Talk to Me Now if you want.
Yeah.
Yes, what does my hair look like when I wake up after a shower and go to bed directly with wet hair?
Yeah.
I want to see. It isn't going to be perfect.
No.
Anyway.
So I
kind of like that's that. It's like, well, that was an interesting day. Our day is full of magical things, honestly.
Mm-hmm. And then we had Sunday dinner because we have Sunday dinner or lunch every Sunday at What Shaman Shack, right? So we have the tribe come in from all over the peninsula to have our lunch together. We do our pure heart meditation.
Yep, do pure heart.
And then we have our lunch.
Did you notice the pure heart time changed?
From 11 to 11?
No, from 11 to 10.
No.
Yeah. Something changed. For me, it was different.
You did backward?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the time changed in my mind.
And then
so it was like another one of those things for the day. Is like the day after, everything is different for some reason today. It's like, why are we doing this at this time? This is the wrong time. Anyway, we sat down for dinner, lunch, and the whole tribe's here and talking and giggling and having fun. And I say, you ain't gonna believe what happened to me
last night. This morning.
Not the last night. I just said this morning. Though I shared about exactly what I shared. I made a nice funny story about waking up with your hair brushed the wrong way and right. And then Fred's eyes got real big.
Yeah, Fred's got really long hair.
Yeah, I joke it's down to his knees, but it's really only down to his, I don't know, waist or something. It's quite long. A little bit unruly.
It's like,
well, you know, we have a reluctant barber.
Yeah.
She appears every now and very rarely. So it's almost like our hair is one of the whys to attract her to come out to the shaman shack.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, how are we going to get our hair cut? We can't go to the barber like normal people anymore.
So anyways,
he said, you're not going to believe it, but my hair was brushed perfectly the wrong way too.
This morning.
And
that's never happened
to him. Never happened in my entire life.
He spends a lot of time on his hair. He's got long hair.
Yeah.
And he brushes it perfectly, perfect line. And he's had it
has a blow dryer and a blow dryer trains
his entire life.
He never goes to bed with his hair wet.
Never.
It's brushed and it's combed the normal way.
Yeah.
And you know, if you use a hair dryer, it makes your hair remember where it is.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever used a hair dryer, but I did it before. I could never get it to work for me, honestly. I tried. It's like, what the heck now is my hair doing?
But he's
used to it. And he said, I've had the same hairstyle since I was in high school.
And he hasn't changed
anything.
Yeah. And he woke up and he looked and he saw that he was perfectly brushed the wrong way. And he thought, well, that's impossible. A bad hair day.
What am I going to do now? What the hell am I going to do? I can't come out. My hair is wrong.
So then that's when I said, okay, so one is a coincidence. Two of you is a communication.
Yeah.
There's something that happened last night that you both want to remember. And this is a way to communicate to yourselves, remember this and look into it. So then we went ahead and I did a ninja regression remembrance with Larry. It's very fast, very light, just to get the data points in. It was about probably 10 minutes. We did not record it. And then I said, okay, now you got your doors open for that memory to expand. And then the next day, Fred did he's a professional trained regressionist from the Dolores Cannon School.
Right. It wasn't the next day. We had what do you call those, firewall.
Oh, really?
Bubbity.
What are you doing? Where are you going? Where are you going?
We said let's do it tonight. And then we said the next day, let's do it tomorrow night. Because those 2 days, oh my God, I was like zonked, max, like, no, I can't do anything. I'm too tired. I can't possibly do it. And so it was the firewalls that I think we put that were put to stop us from looking.
Yeah, because, you know, if you have an experience and you decide I'm going to forget, and then you decide I actually want to remember. So there's like conflicting, there's conflicting firewalls or programs running, right? Yeah. But anyway,
it took a few days of firewalls, and then we actually got it done. One night was like, do you know why we did it? Because the next morning we're going to record our show. It's like, we have to do it tonight. We have like 3 hours. I mean, we have 6 hours until they're going to do a recording of our second hour podcast, and we have a very important day we can't break with Ilia and Adelina. They're very busy.
Yeah.
So we have to do it tonight. It's 9:00. How long does this take, Fred? Like hour or so? Let's do a fast one, okay? Just swoop in there and take a look, and then we'll swoop out, go to bed, take showers, and we'll be fine. Just an hour will be fine. Yeah. The next thing I know, it's almost 1:00 in the morning. Yeah. And I say, that was a half hour, Fred. How did it get to be almost 1:00 in the morning? 3.5 hours, 4 hours. Yeah. Holy moly. I was just laid down there. It was an interesting experience because, well, didn't expect what came. I mean, I had an inkling of what's coming because Inelia had sat with me and done a quick, what I thought we would be doing that night with Fred, a quick one to kind of tap in and say, is there memories there to look at? But I had no idea 3.5 hours later what I was going to be sharing. So it's kind of left me a little bit unsettled, a little bit speechless, and a little bit unsure of how to proceed. So I think the best way to proceed is just tell everyone everything.
Transparency usually works.
And then let the cards fall where they may. And, you know, I'm not the only one who's had an experience like this. Obviously, Fred did too. And as it turns out, others. But
others, yeah.
We haven't talked with the others about it, so we're not
going to mention them.
We'll try to restrict our conversation to just the 2 people that we have spoken about, or spoken with, and maybe one of them that's public already. So, you know, it's okay.
Yeah.
But anyone else's private information we'll keep private until and when and if they're wanting to, you know, share some of their story too. But that seemed like
reasonable to me.
Reasonable.
Yes.
And that seems reasonable. Yeah. So what do you think? I should just spill the beans, everything, or just, you know?
Well, we have the recording that Ilya's going to slice in.
Oh.
Right? So.
Well, we do have that, so we let the story happen, and they'll find out on this as I found out. Same way, okay?
Yeah.
Is that what you think?
Yeah. I mean, the first half hour or
How about we have a third hour, and we just sort of beat around the bush?
Yeah.
Beat around the bush today, and you really have to subscribe if you want to know the rest of the story.
OMG.
Want to do that?
No, don't do that.
No? Okay, come on.
Don't do that. So the first part of it was regression to previous lifetimes. Did you guys have any questions around that, or did you want to go straight to the second part of the hair experience?
Yeah. Initially, I was curious how that worked. Because it's new to me, and it was interesting to hear Larry go through that experience. Then I wondered about our audience; they would likely want to go to the ET experience.
But I think it's important. One thing
you gave the plot away. You said ET experience.
I did.
It's okay.
It's fine.
So
okay, everybody, it was an ET experience.
Was an ET experience.
I'm gonna cut it out.
No, you don't.
But I do want to comment about the process that Fred used to explain to me, that we're going to work on a couple of past lives first, and those past life experiences will bring us to a point of theta state or some kind of word like that then we can start to access the other memories that are more subconscious.
Yeah.
So the exercise of visiting our past life experiences was basically to induct us into a theta state where we're able to access our memories. Like if you close your eyes, he said he started with, close your eyes and imagine a rose. What does it look like? Imagine a yellow square. Imagine a beach with sand, that kind of thing. And then he said, so that is where you're going to look to access some of this information. So your body was like, got the directions. It was pretty cool. Yeah. I was impressed with that.
Yeah. He's very good at what he does.
Right. So we spent about a half hour, 40 minutes, probably a half hour, looking at 2 past lives. And I enjoyed those past lives. Let me tell you what, they were pretty good ones. Just saying.
Yeah.
Anybody have questions about those? I did look up some of the stuff that I found in the past life to see if I could locate them in history. Mm-hmm. And I had some luck. It was pretty cool.
It's good.
Did you happen to look up the flying turtles reference?
And so move forward from there to a time in that life that seems important, a time that you feel that's important in that lifetime. And so what do you see?
I have a fire, and we're looking at the night sky. And we see, well, UFOs basically.
Mm-hmm.
A pack of 5 running through the sky. Strange. looks so strange.
Big UFOs, or what do they look like?
They look like little ones, but they're in a
Formation,
right?
Mm-hmm.
Traveling through the sky and low enough that you can see some detail, not just dots of light, but like some detail,
Mm-hmm. Is there someone with you?
Couple.
They see it too?
Yep. It wasn't of nothing happened, but just saw it,
Uh-huh.
But it was pretty far out because you don't see that
Right.
in that time.
No, it's not quite normal.
So at the time, let's see, it was flying turtles.
So you were talking about seeing flying turtles?
Yeah. Which makes as much sense then as it did now. Fuck are those turtles flying? Look at that. Holy shit. Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
Well, the flying turtles, that's an interesting one. I didn't think to try to look that up because, the records in that time were oral. So we didn't really have written the oral. So one of the things that's interesting about that is at the time we had no frame of reference to describe an object flying through the sky that looks like a flying saucer type of thing. So it kind of looks like a turtle. Yeah. So it's a flying turtle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally got the imagery, and I wondered if there's references in your tribe's stories or drawings of flying turtles.
Well, in the tribe that I'm a member of currently, Makah tribe, our history has a thunderbird, and the thunderbird is silver and bright and makes a loud noise, and you don't look at it
because he'll take you away.
He'll take you away if you do. So thunderbird is what this tribe. This flying turtles was more of a plains Indian life. I had teepees and by a river and multiple villages and started our new village and had good reasons for it and looked at the reasons for it. Had that whole experience of bringing to fruition a vision that wasn't all I, me, myself, but was more we, collective group.
Identity,
driven,
right? Yeah.
As an identity, yeah. Mm-hmm. So it was a pretty cool life, and it had practical relation to our current life and our current experience. Where we're basically building a new tribe, right?
Yeah, totally.
Building new tribes, I suppose. So the flying turtles is pretty cool, yeah, because that did segue right into what happened, which is another UFO. Right. What would be fun is to do a regression on that lifetime of the flying turtles. Let's see if the flying turtles were grabbing me back then too.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Anyway.
So as I was listening to the recording, I thought that's exactly what's going to happen, and that you would eventually mention that the entire thing had started back then with the flying turtles.
Well, right now I just realized it did, but I didn't realize that it did then.
Right.
I didn't think about it, but it was interesting how it appeared in that past life, remembering.
It just illustrates that what you see is programmed or interpreted by your brain, by your mind, depending on your culture and what you already know exists. It's very, very telling that way.
So to catch people up, it was the past life remembrance of a life as a plains type Indian. And I was with, I think I remember right, I was with, maybe we should just clip in that little bit. So that wasn't very long. Noticing the flying turtles.
Yeah,
okay. That probably be worthwhile.
Yeah.
But I had I had moved to a notable experience in that lifetime of some kind. Yeah. And this was one of those that pops up as a remembered experience during that lifetime that was notable. Mm. So we had a UFO experience. That was so cool.
All right.
Well, that whole process brought me to a state of conversation. when I was talking with Fred at that point, I was sort of like stepped to the side of myself in the sense that he could ask a question, I could answer the question like I knew the answer, but I don't know the answer, but I knew the answer. It was very strange.
Well, he was talking to your broader awareness, right? Or he called it subconscious self, or,
Yeah, higher self.
I mean,
more expanded self.
Expanded self. It's well known that we, as a species, or a person, we can sense and see and perceive and understand way, way bigger than what consciously we remember, right?
Right.
So we know this. That's why sometimes when people do hypnotherapy, they go to a location and then they see all the details that they hadn't noticed before, because we very keenly filter out a lot of information that's coming into us because there's overload otherwise.
Yeah, right. Because
so you would know the answers, right? Because you were there, you saw, you perceived, and you knew, but a lot of that information you decided to forget so you could have your daily experience without tainting it with other stuff, right?
Yeah, but I did comb my hair the wrong way so that I wouldn't forget. So yes, there is that.
It's the playful side of it. And also, we do that type of messaging in our lives all the time.
Little hints.
Everybody who's listening to the second hour or even the first hour, driving to the rest, had placed little markers in their lives to remember stuff and to become more aware and expand their awareness, right? And they will see that as that remembrance. They will perceive that, it's wake up time. It's like, I'm going to wake up now. And it could be all sorts of things, So this one, it's very playful, and it was a communication because the information is ready to come out.
Right. And one of the interesting things to me is that the circumstance of the Sunday dinner was what brought the cares combed the wrong way to both Fred and I's awareness. But even if we both had been aware, it was like Fred said his was backwards too. And I'm thinking,
he never mentioned it.
Well, he never mentioned it. He was going to forget it. And I mentioned it because it was kind of funny. And I was having a conversation.
He did say, I forgot about it until you mentioned it. And I remember, wait, that happened to me this morning too.
But if it had just been Fred and I talking and he had said, I combed my hair wrong this morning too, I'd be like, wow, that's crazy. But that would have been it over, right? Because nothing would have gone past that.
Right.
It wouldn't have been enough for us to say,
it's a communication.
It would have been just enough for us to say,
what a great coincidence.
That's crazy. And then go on and cook and let's go for a hike or whatever.
I'll fix a car.
So we needed whoever else was with us to help bring it to real. Bring it to, hey, look,
don't forget.
This was a reminder to yourselves of something, so we should look. Yeah. So as a community orchestration.
Yeah.
Cool.
I believe Inelia is the only one who mentioned that this is a communication or a message, because I also feel like that's weird.
Yeah.
That's it. I wouldn't have thought to inquire further as you guys did.
Well, oddly enough, Inelia is here for pretty much expressly that purpose. Wake up, you guys.
It's like trying to wake up a dormitory of 1 billion people. All wake up. You get one nearly awake, right? And then you go to the next one and that one is back to sleep. Oh my God, it's so frustrating. Yeah.
You're so patient, honey.
I know, super patient.
Okay.
So I have a question about the sessions.
Okay.
It was interesting to hear Fred doing the past life regression, and it felt like it was like training wheels for what was about to happen next.
Yeah.
And I was surprised that he continued to do the actual, I guess, memory retrieval session. Let's put it. I don't know if that's the name. And I was surprised that he agreed to do it because he was also part of the experience. So wasn't there a concern that he would be either biased or worse triggered by whatever he might have said?
Biased or triggered? No, what was relevant was that it was a shared experience, and that's why we wanted to do it together.
Yeah.
So as I could remember, he might have his memory jogged a little bit too, in order to ask questions that were actually relevant.
It's not like
it wasn't
regular
a scientific process. I'm trying to prove a remembrance or anything. It had nothing to do with that. I don't care if you believe it or not. I don't even know if I believe it.
Yeah.
Because, honestly, it doesn't common enough experience, although I've read plenty of those experiences. It doesn't ring in my body as
made up.
Made up. It was, I could have, I guess, made up it, but it's not my nature to make things up and just let's go with that bull. Here's a story. How about this one? I'll make that up too. And you know what else? This too. And hey, here. So some of the things, they were just like, what do you like on your sandwich? Peanut butter and jelly. What kind of jelly do you want? I would like grape jam. I don't like grape jelly. And that's just, didn't have to make that up. That came out like normal because it's real.
Yeah.
You're breaking up a little.
Yeah, I'm thinking with regards to Fred being, doing a session, but also being highly involved in the story. Normally that wouldn't happen because, he would be very neutral, right? And not part of the story. But this one, they agreed to do this as kind of a joint thing and explore the situation together. Right. And it's not your regular session. You wouldn't go through like that, right?
And there's no way.
The methodology, yes.
Yeah.
It's a very set methodology that he's been using for years. But it's a very different aspect because he did have a role to play in it. He was there.
His hair was backwards too.
So in a way, I think he made it way more interesting because he was able to ask, what is our role? And, Fred and Larry and this and this and the other. And, I think he made it to be a much richer experience. And
yeah, because he was actually interested enough in doing it to begin it at 9 o'clock at night and continue all the way until 1 o'clock, totally engaged and excited, despite the fact he has to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning the next day.
Right.
He still stayed up till 1 o'clock and asked more and more questions. It was barely done at the end,
Yeah.
So he was a very interested party.
Having done these recession things with other people and having listened to the one that they did, to me, it felt more real and more energized because of that. Now, like I said, normally you wouldn't do that, right? Because you, as a counselor or somebody who does a therapy or of some kind of regression memory thing, one of the rules is, don't bring yourself into the other person's case, right? You don't bring yourself in. But this was a very specific exercise and experiment that they decided to do, knowing that was part of it. He had to bring himself in and look and see and feel and test, the information as he was coming in. Right.
And interestingly to note, normally in his process, he's outside of the little process that they do. The Dolores' process puts the person that's being regressed in a space that's separate from the space that you are. And in this case, he put me in that space, but he also put another one outside of us that included both of us. That was Inelia's suggestion for him. So he was included in.
Right.
So it was slightly modified.
Yeah.
A question for Inelia, as you listened to the recording and you were hearing Larry speak. Did he sound different to you? Because to me, and I think Radina as well, he sounded very relaxed, calm, and very sure of himself. Like that's why it felt like he was doing channeling and connecting directly to the experience and relating it as the questions were being asked. And I think sometimes he even said like, let me go look or let me ask, and he would then bring an answer.
I think that when you are in that theta state, everybody does this. a lot of the programming that you have and all the I, me, and myself stuff drops away. So it's a level of relax that you're actually talking to the real person. But it can sound, wow, they sound so different. Usually they're all sprung up and this and the other. And there's just clarity and vocabulary and standing their ground and, being quite firm but gentle. But that's actually Larry. I mean, I've seen Larry this way a lot, right? But mostly he's also, as an I, me, and myself, smaller personality construct. He's shy, actually. But at the same time, he's a Leo, so he wants attention. So there's a kind of dynamic of tension there all the time.
Look at me,
right?
Don't look at me.
Yeah, look at me, don't look at me. Look at me, don't look at me, So throughout the years, when him and I are talking about something and looking at something deeper, more involved, he does do that naturally. He just calms himself down. Let me think about that, or I'm going to look and see. And he just goes into the other space. That's Larry the elder, right? So to me, he didn't sound any different. It felt like he was very clear, and this is something that is also him. He's very studious, and he likes to inquire about a topic from every single angle. So I can just imagine him during those visits with these other beings being very thorough in his questioning, right? If he asks some... We're blowing up the internet, honey.
It's okay if the internet blows up. It'll be fixed. It's a self-organizing collective.
Yeah.
So you're saying he's very thorough with the questions he would ask.
Yeah. So he's thorough, and he will inquiry through different aspects or angles and things. And I can just imagine him doing that when he's with with the species that he was visiting with. He would do that. He would ask and ask and ask again and clarify and look and, And then, of course, most of the creatures in the universe have experiential telepathy. You can actually connect with somebody and have a communication with them. And as our species goes more naturally normal, the human species, we are developing and we are expanding our sense of communication that up to now have been very, very suppressed. Like, say, somebody will say compassion. What does that compassion mean? It actually means feeling what the other person's feeling, right? Which is a human form, is what we are. We feel what others feel. And also we can hear what others are thinking and sense what others are sensing. So it's just delving deeper into that. And then when you do that, people give it different names. They can say, yeah, I went into the Akashic Records. I can see everything and read everything. We have different names for it, but it's part of our collective to be able to tap into those type of information. And then if you communicate with a different species, you can contact them too and talk to them too. So, there's people who are very connected to trees, and they can connect with the tree collective and get lots of information about the trees or cats, right? What about the animal communicators around the planet? That's exactly what they do. So when, for example, that lady Anna, who communicates with animals in South Africa, when she's communicating with the gazelle, would you say, oh, she's channeling the gazelles, right? I don't think so, because there isn't a gazelle that went into her body and speaking through her mouth. I think she's contacting the gazelle and saying, hey, what are you doing? Oh, we're eating grass, right? Oh, okay. So if something happens and you're stressed out, what do you do? Oh, we eat grass.
Eat some grass.
Right? And then when you're calm and everything's good, we eat grass.
Eat grass.
Right? We eat grass. So it's like she's not channeling the gazelle. She's just communicating with them. Right? As parents, right? When Emil couldn't speak yet and he was tiny baby. All you wanted to do, and he was crying, says, "What is going on? What's going on? Why speak to me? You know, just tell me what's going on." And at some point in that development, it's not that he became more quiet or more able to settle down. It's that you were able to connect and communicate with each other and know what he was saying with his cry, right? You're able to perceive it, sense it, know it, right? So that development is like that. So when I listened to the recording, to me, not even for 1 second did I think Larry was channeling anything. But he was calm and he was in deep communication and able to perceive and sense information that was being shared with him or that he already knew.
Incidentally, we listened to that at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, because after he finished, he came back, he came to bed and he wanted to listen to it. And I'm like, oh no, it's so late, you know. So
but once we got started, we couldn't stop.
Yeah, it was so interesting that, you know, carried on listening to it. And at one point I said, you know, I'm done, I have to go to sleep. And then I went to sleep and he finished it. He carried on listening to all of it again.
So we have, you know, all sorts of kind of questions and underlying things. Do you want us to go through that, or do you want a different format?
I think that we could talk. I mean, you know, if you have a question, a specific question about something, we can play it, and then you can ask it, right? And then we'll look and see if we have any more data on it.
So, yeah, right at the beginning of the memory retrieval session, and we will play that segment. Larry says that to get done what we wanted to get done is best we don't get so uncomfortable. There is no need for it. And there is an entire discussion about why Larry was getting uncomfortable and how that was dealt with, and we have questions about that as well. But the question here is what needed to get done? I'm not sure I understood from the recording.
This is the beginning of the retrieval of the memory?
Yes, right at the beginning, yes.
I think you have to play it for me because I can't remember.
Because he's running the program, I forget the thing, so... So you talked about, you know, getting it done means, you know, getting up there into the ship. It gets very traumatic for the physical body, elemental.
Okay, right.
But you needed to do it to get it done. But he wants to know, get what done?
Well, when we go for a visit, what needs to get done there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Question. Well, every visit was different. Towards the end of the end of the memory, it becomes more. You get more detail about that question is specifically asked. And so in the case of us, Fred and I, and others unnamed, we've had visits for our whole life since we were children. And these visits once every year, once every 2 years, not more frequently than that. And their visits at one stage was the checkup on your state, and keep so the goal being, I guess I'm skipping around a little bit. Each visit had a different purpose, but generally the same theme, which was upkeep and care of the body and the mind. Keep them in as good a state and as stable a state as possible, because it turns out being a human on the planet has a lot of distractions and a lot of unknowns that come in, because everyone's body's different, everyone's soul is a bit different, everyone's idea of what they're here for is a bit different, everyone's experience of forgetting everything is a bit different. Everyone is different. And so the specific ones that are gathered together with us in our ship have interrelationships and interactions together, and interactions with the world and other people, and everybody's body responds to all those things differently. Not to mention they respond to going up on a ship and not remembering anything differently, because as has been known for a long time, when you have like what feels like a traumatic experience, if you don't remember it consciously, it still has an effect on your life. It causes you to have like a strange fear of dark, terrified of it, projections of animals attacking you. And in my case, I have nightmares for, I guess, 45 years. Every single night, a bear is going to get me through my window. There's nothing I can do about it, no matter how hard I close the doors or close the windows, turn off the lights, get a dog, get blankets, couple blankets under your bed. Doesn't matter what I do, that bear is going to get me every freaking night.
Yeah.
So that was
an interpretation, isn't it?
Yeah, that's how my mind was remembering what was going on by the most logical threat that I could call real. A bear would be a real thing, because I lived in Alaska and I lived on the bottom floor and I read about bears attacking people. And so it terrified me. And that was equal terror as I was feeling when I would go on a visit. So the visit still needed to get done, but the comprehension of what effect the visit had causing more of the problems that the visits were supposed to solve, that came over time. And that was part of the thing that I found interesting, was that rather than visit and you're the victim of the visit, the knowing that at some point, knowing what the visits were causing and becoming aware enough to share, here's some of the ways we can maybe solve this so that we can continue to have our visits, but not continue to create trauma from it. That bringing that in, which is something that came in later, bringing that in with them so that they could comprehend that these effects are what's causing these other effects. So we need to delete these effects, the trauma, so that we don't have to keep coming back and have to fix all the things that the trauma is causing, you know? So it was a suggestions that I would have made, you know? It's like, how about try this? How about try this? It's a natural thing that I would have done. And it was interesting to see they listened, and that it wasn't their ideas, it was our ideas. We're the ones with the experience of being human. Mm-hmm. Their experiences of, how do you deal with these crazy animals?
Yeah. So I wanted to interject a little bit of information around that. The human collective is very clever. We are a very clever species around the universe. And when we decided to do the jump of awareness here on planet Earth and step away from the light-dark paradigm and into the natural light paradigm that we're originally from, we as a species put out a call for assistance, right? Because we got a little bit muddled up with the lower frequencies of a different universe, right? Got a little bit sticky there. We needed a little bit of assistance. And around the planet, millions of people can relate to, yeah, I know that is true. I answered that call. That's why I'm here, right? Many people know this and they can sense it. I know why I'm here. I'm here to assist the human collective expand their awareness or ascend or whatever it is their culture will dictate, or their investigations resonate the most with. Now, it wasn't just souls that answered the call. It was also the human collective went to certain species that have technological advances that we don't have or don't use. And they said, hey, dudes, can you help us? We need to do this. And we know you have certain technologies that maybe can help us. Some of them said, nah, I don't think so. We're not interested. And some of them said, that would be interesting. Yeah, we'd like to know how that would work with your species. Let's do that. Yeah, we'll help. Okay. So to me, the whole, this particular species that Larry and Fred were talking to, or they were in their ship, was one of these species that are interested in helping out, but they haven't done this before. Nobody's done this before. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's like, okay, yeah, we're going to integrate this technology. We need some volunteers, and a whole bunch of people around the planet said, yeah, we'll volunteer to be that technology. right? Okay, so now this is how we're going to do it. So we need to know where you are each lifetime. We're going to come in and we're going to start testing the technology and see how it integrates, so that when the time comes, what comes? Our choices to expand our awareness and become a collective again, right? Become connected again, being able to come in and out of that consciousness, collective consciousness at will, right? And so bunches and bunches of people around the planet volunteered, and they're taken in as babies or even helped to come through into the planet as babies. And the technology is evolving and tested and seeing how it survives and, what happens to the human bodies, because human bodies are tough and they're like animals, they're wild, So they're hard to tame, our human bodies, right? They're hard to tame. And then it's that the evolution of that technology, and that's later on in the regression, they talked about how there's clusters all over the world, and some of them didn't make it, make it out of those clusters. But the more you have in one location, the stronger that way of broadcasting is. And we've been talking about this forever, right? It's like if you have more than one person with an intent, it multiplies, it becomes larger, right? If you have an intent to being of high frequency and you do your work by yourself, yes, you raise the vibration and the frequency of the planet. But if you do it with another person or with a group of people, it amplifies larger and a higher frequency than by one person alone. So this is what it evolves and what happens. And this is part of that. One of the technologies that can assist it and accelerate it is this technology that these people are bringing in. And Larry and the others in this particular cluster, they volunteered to be one of those clusters, right? So it's like they will naturally through life find each other and they have that pull. I need to live there. I want to be there. I want to be in that area with these people. It's just a pull that just, it's like, well, how can I do it? And, you guys can relate probably, because I know you guys are part of it too. It's irresistible. How do I manage it? What do I do, right? Yeah. Or you can start new clusters and attract people to where you are. Right. So I wanted to clarify that, because it's very easy to fall either into the victim aggressor or to give your authority away, thinking these people are doing these things to us and here we are passive passengers, which is not the case, not for the human collective.
Not even close.
Right.
When I listen to you and think about clusters and getting together, then what comes to my mind is decentralization. So now it's like, okay, so now what's better is like to be decentralized, to get into clusters.
Yeah, so I think there's a misunderstanding of what decentralization means. Okay, because decentralization do not cluster. It means to not have all the species centered around one thing, one authority in the middle, and everybody listens to that authority. Decentralization means that clusters all over the world come together and they're their own authority.
They're their own authorities.
They don't listen to one central authority for the planet. They're actually different authorities all over the planet for their area. That's decentralization.
Oh, thank you. Now I got it. Yeah. Okay.
For electricity, for people, if you didn't understand that, for electricity, we have centralized electricity. It comes from a wire from one place on a dam, right? That dam has all the electricity for everybody's house. And decentralized electricity would be maybe there's a little free energy device of some kind or a generator that generates electricity, and there's one for 5 houses or 10 houses, or even just one for every house.
Yeah.
That's decentralized. Centralized is where you have a dam and it goes to everyone, and the one guy gets all the money, or one company or one state or whatever. Yeah.
And that's everything. And the other one is each village or each neighborhood to have its own.
They're self-autonomous.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they don't cooperate. It just means they're autonomous. They're not controlled centrally.
Yeah, on that central aspect part.
So I'd like to go back to what Inelia interjected, and this is also visible in the way Larry was speaking throughout the session, because a couple of times he mentioned that no, they are not doing this to us. We are doing it. We chose to do it. We placed these programs. We chose to forget. We chose to even make that suggestion on how to be brought on the ship so it's more comfortable. So there are no victims basically in this experience. And my curiosity was then, why then start these visits if the body gets so traumatized, and then you have a sort of a chain reaction because you have to have another visit to fix the previous trauma, but that creates another traumatic event, and so on and so forth. And I think, you answered that because Larry volunteered for this, and it's an experiment. Not everything is well known and ironed out, so things are still like being tested.
Yeah.
Well, because you got to remember these beings that are we recruited to help us, they're not humans. They don't have human bodies. They don't have human souls. They don't have human stuff.
Right.
And they don't interpret the world through a human lens, and they're not even on the same frequency vibrationally. So it's
they
like
wouldn't know.
They couldn't know. They could only find out by experimenting and doing and trying. And the same with us. When we volunteer to come do this, the environment that we're existing in right now isn't the same as the environment that we existed in past lives even. It's a different environment entirely. And the moving target is that we're not the only ones creating. We're co-creating with others who have other agendas. Mm-hmm. So the miasma of reality of 8 billion supercomputers all simultaneously co-creating with different levels of tie-in together makes a reality that you can't foresee. You can only maybe like that, maybe like that. So it wouldn't make sense that if we ask you to help us and then you show up to help us, when we get there, we freak out. That isn't going to make any sense. Mm-hmm. It's like, why were you freaking out?
Yeah. What's going on here?
What's wrong? But the reality of existing in the fog, think of it as the fog of the planet Earth, is that you have loss of memory and you have human body and you have set programs that came through life, and they cause reactions and responses that are unpredictable.
Yeah.
You might think, well, it should be easy to predict. If you get zapped into here, you're going to be freaked out. And there is some consideration to, this is an unusual experience, but at the same time, you said you wanted to, so why are you freaking out? Mm-hmm. And then if you calm down and you recognize and you relax and you rest and you take a little bit of time, and then all of a sudden you're fine. It's like, well, why the freak out every time? You're fine. Everything's fine. So when you put in a device that helps, like for instance, an implant that reminds you of the nausea you felt from drinking too much, to help you remember, don't drink before you start to drink, to start breaking that stress response, for example. It's like, how does that push you maybe into being a different kind of drug addict? It's like, okay, it's not booze, I guess I can try something else. It's like, you can't know these things until you do it, and then find out each body's different. So that's kind of why it isn't like a clear and easy science, mm-hmm. because it's a moving target with too many variables.
Yeah.
You push here and it squirts out over there. You push there, it squirts out over there. So you got to figure out how not to push. Mm-hmm. That's basically one way to think about it.
Yeah, this is so interesting, because when I listened to the recording and I heard about the getting traumatized so much, I was thinking, but why don't they connect to a soul level first, But now you answered it very clear, that, they are so different from us. They don't have a soul. So how could that communication take place? Yeah.
Right. And that brings into the question, what even is a soul?
Right.
Because there's the assumption in some way that a soul is some kind of a ghostly thing that's intangible and not talkable to, and they don't know what it is. But what it is that's different isn't that. The soul is simply another
body.
You,
yes.
Basically. How did that happen, Henry?
We forgot to get one silent out.
Oh my gosh, out of all devices.
How many devices?
How could you do that to us? So a soul is you. It's another you, another body, another everything, but it's at a different subtlety.
Yeah.
It exists
and
as
it's a symbiotic
being.
Relationship between the body and the soul is a symbiotic relationship. But it's very unusual, right? And it's not common on the universe.
The symbiotic nature of two bodies as one.
Right.
So they have communication with souls. They have communication with human visit or human body, animals, like bring dogs or cats or whatever up to the ship. The dogs and the cats don't freak out. They don't even care. They're just like,
where are we?
That's weird.
This one does.
Got some food? Food. Okay, I'll have food. Boy, this is my new world. Okay.
Yeah.
They don't have the same.
Unless you're a cat.
Unless you're a cat. I don't even think the cat will.
Not our cats, but usually cats. You take them to a new house and it's like.
We took Brad to his new house. He looks around, sniffs around. So long he's got a kitty box.
He's fine.
That's home.
Yeah.
If there's a box to poop in, I'm great. I'll go find me some food. I can sit on this. Hey, look, there's a chair. That's my chair
now.
That's my chair. It's been here for my whole life.
Yeah. So it's different, right?
So human bodies are different.
But with her, this PB, you move one little thing in her environment, she freaks out completely.
Yeah.
Right? She freaks out. Look, I moved her.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, can't do that. I'm out of here.
She's a smart little dog, which means she's very aware of all movement around her so that she doesn't get squished.
Yes.
Good girl. So I think that I believe, I don't know if it seems true. I didn't super connect, but it seems that the soul level beings are the ones that made the request and connection with that race to come assist and keep this channel clear for us. We're going to try it out. We're going to incarnate. We're going to stay connected with you. You help us by staying outside the fog. Mm-hmm. And we'll continue and see what happens as we do this to try to make this the most efficient way of keeping a clear channel, clear communication, clear beam of light.
Yeah.
So that would be the mechanism that you would ask. It wouldn't be like, I'm sitting there as a baby and I say, please come help me.
I did.
You did, not me. Help me, guys.
What the hell did you care? Why did you leave me here?
Come back. Yeah.
At some point in the session, you even mentioned that we asked them to help us with the clear channel so we wouldn't be influenced anymore by the fog on the planet. And I think Fred asked you to, like, what would be your purpose on the planet? And you said that of backup. And to me, that implied that there is a sort of a master plan for the planet, and if that fails because too many people are being lost in this fog illusion thingy, that there are a couple, or maybe more than a couple, a lot of people that are the backup, which chose to volunteer for this program that keeps them connected with these beings that are outside the fog so they can give clear navigational direction. Did I understand that correctly?
I think so. Yeah, go for it.
So what I understood, there's a perception that I understood from that explanation. It's not so much like a plan B, right? Because it feels to me like you're asking, is there a plan B?
Yes, a plan A. If it fails, then you guys do this.
So imagine, I don't know if you have power outs where you live.
We do.
Okay. Do you have a generator that goes on when your power goes out?
Not automatically, but we have one here.
Yes, exactly. You're not automatic, but you have one, right?
Yes.
So the power goes out, you plug in your generator and you still have power.
Yeah.
That's the way to see it. Okay, so the human collective is always in flux. Do you see the difference?
So it's not a backup plan, is a backup power. So there's still, so we proceed.
Right, exactly. So there's still light on the planet. You can't switch it off. It's a direct connection to light all the time. And even if the human collective flickers like that, or because like, say, for example, if that wave has succeeded around the planet, it would have caused a break in the matrix. It would have been not good.
Yeah, the one she's talking about, remember that the wave of truth, so to speak, truth that
people
terrorizes
and terrifies and
cracks the matrix of the reality and brings in the dark one or whatever.
Yeah, God knows what, right?
God knows what.
So that one of the reasons it's not catching is because of the generators in the background, the people who are bringing in that light full on, no matter what.
Decentralized.
It's decentralized so they can do it, right? So it's that type of backup. That's how I saw it. Not so much plan B, but this is the backup. Power is always here. The light is always here because this is the backup. Even when the human collective is fluctuating because of these waves, the backup is always on, right? We always have a generator that can turn on, max on, anytime there's a dip in the light. That's how I saw it. I don't know if you saw it differently.
That was the best way to describe it. It was like the lights come on when you say it that way.
Yeah.
Now it makes sense. You're the decentralized backup powers.
Yeah.
When the light flickers, it doesn't go off.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter if it goes off because it comes back on.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to go to the garage, take the generator, plug it in, put gas in it, turn it on, right? Check the spark plug.
We might need a big antenna. We might need to channel some extra in there because it's pretty foggy down there. So you might need a little help.
Yeah.
Because you're in the fog.
Yeah.
So here's
you
a backup.
Need a torch, to
the
get it down there, to get
the generator. To get into there to turn the thing on. So we're flashlights.
And that's the work. I mean, that's what you're doing.
It's the orchestrations. Yeah. Cool. Good question. Good answer.
When throughout the session, you've used a couple of times the expression "when the time comes" or "when it's time."
Yeah.
To bring in either a message or to act and have clear vision. And so we became very curious when it's time for what? What's about to come?
So basically, that refers to, in a sense, exactly what Inelia just described. When the power goes out, the power comes on.
Yeah.
And how to turn the power on is different depending on how the power went off. And there's a lot of ways for the power to go off, and there's a lot of ways to respond. But if you're in the power outage and in the fog and the power went out, you don't even know that the power's out.
Mm-hmm.
So these are how you know the power went out. That's kind of the way that you might think about it. It's like right now we have a solar system set up with a solar little power thing. Same thing we had on the Inelia. When the power is coming in from the grid, the lights are on. When the power goes off, we don't even know because it flicks to batteries and the lights are still on and nothing happened.
Yeah.
That's an automatic process. This process is similar in that the automatic process is the connection that we made outside of the fog so that we know the power's out and the power comes back on. Kind of a way to think about it, an analogy.
Because when we're in the Inelia, sometimes, if you're chatting and you look out the window and the whole village is dark.
It's like, oh, what happened?
Oh, the village is all dark. The power must be out. That's because you're outside of the village, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have a viewpoint outside of the village and you can see that the village is dark. But you're not, because your power came on automatically. So that connection also gives you that perspective of, oh, look, the village is all dark because I'm outside it, I can see.
Right. So then when the time comes, is a similar metaphor with the power generator, meaning you're sort of you're monitoring that the light stays on, and the time comes when the light is flickering, then it's time to turn on, the light even brighter, or make sure it's visible. And
well, let's say our batteries are dead and the flight does go off and the power's off and everybody's power's off.
If your battery's off.
And your batteries are off and you're like,
not good.
They're
powering out.
Well, you have a connection to say, hey, your power's out, turn your batteries on. Yeah. That can even happen, because you don't even know that it happened because you're in it. Yeah. You can't know everything while you're in it, everything. I mean, you can experience a trauma, you can experience an event, you can experience a thing happen, but sometimes it's so everywhere. The fog is everywhere and everything that you don't even know that something's different without an outside perspective. So this is a process of including an outside of inside the fog perspective. I hope it's not making it more hard to understand, but
I think you actually talked to that effect in the session when you mentioned some point that they don't have influence here, but they have the information. We are in the fog and we have influence, but we don't have information.
Exactly.
So the connection bridges the two. They can help us get clear information while we also have influence.
Oh, that's what the fog looks like. No, that's not there. There's none of that there. Don't worry. That's just, no, that's not the true nature of real. That's a,
Right. So that's interesting. At some point you mentioned advanced technology that is supportive of our consciousness rather than imposing on our consciousness. And to me, that was interesting because I'm a technology nerd. And anything you can say more about it? I mean, there's
well, it coordinates with your already happenings, sort of like, so one of the, I don't know how to go into that.
So I guess why this was what piqued my interest is because there are very few people that I know of, let's call them light workers, who are okay with technology. Most of other that I know, when I mention AI or implants or advanced consciousness technology, they're like, no, we have none of that. And
right, that's automatic response.
Yeah, automatically, like technology is bad, is negative, and it's here to take
overtake you, right?
I think that's partly that is some of the negative programming, so that we reject technology that can be positive.
That's fog.
And we've been people who are positive and people who can bring high frequency technology onto the planet are programmed to know that technology is bad, so don't go there, don't do that, don't investigate, don't invent. That's what happens.
So Inelia's used an example before. What would happen if your cell phone was transmitting in a frequency that was supportive of life?
Yeah. What would the world look like?
What would the world look like if that were everyone on the planet is carrying a 7432, whatever number, the right frequency that supports life and encourages growth and health. What if everyone were wearing a transmitter receiver of that frequency? Boy, what a great thing that would be.
Yeah.
Nobody would argue with that, would they? Well, apparently some people would. Not only would some people who would actually benefit from it, some people who would rather you carry around a device that transmits a frequency that interrupts and disrupts.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I imagine a world where there'll be like lots of plants taking over the antennas for the cell towers, but not to destroy them, just kind of get nourished by them.
Yes.
All the towers.
This is the place to be. Come.
Guys, stay away from the transmitter. Come on, give it a little space. It's choking it off, guys. We need to figure out how to slow these plants down a little bit.
Yeah,
exactly. It can happen.
So another question that I thought needs more explanation was when Fred asked if the beings you guys interacted with on the planet have any connection with the insects on planet Earth, like the mantis and the grasshoppers specifically, and you said something to the effect that they are more like a permission for them to enter this planet. It wasn't very clear what you meant by that.
So first of all, it would be important to maybe describe what they looked like. Maybe that part of the regression where I say kind of what they looked like might be worthwhile listening to. But as I recall now, they're black, dark skin, and their faces kind of looked like a grasshopper or mantis or type of thing. And they had almond-shaped eyes that were just beautiful, and black on the bottom, and then a wave of sunshine, like filaments of ocean waves, and then liquid brown, tan, just the most amazingly beautiful eyes you could ever imagine, right? Mm-hmm. They do have a resemblance to a skinny, tall mantis, grasshopper type being, right?
My first awareness was of a liquid almond eye. Mm-hmm. And the bottom half, or the top half, is black, and the bottom half of the top half, I can't remember which order. The bottom is black, and then the middle is like the surface of the sun waves, and the top is liquidy, light brown. That's the almond-shaped eye, if you look really, really close. And the eye is like really, really close. That was the first thing I saw. So them as beings, they're not etherical, they're not astral or anything like that. They're physical beings.
They're physical beings. They're just they're more subtle.
They are more insecty.
And more insecty. Do they have a physical, how can I put it, a reflection of the insects that we would see here on the planet? That might be something from a similar planet or something like that.
Well, like I said, grasshopper head mantis type. That would be what you would think. But they are very much skinnier and very much taller.
So the grasshoppers and mantises that are on this planet now, are they seeded from the same place as them, or is that just coincidental?
They're like the cells of their toe, something like that. Oh, it's like genetically. Okay. So, like a mini-me, but not a conscious mini-me, not a actual, let's seed the planet with baby us. More like if we have cells of us, a cell of us existing, then we have input allowed.
Oh, I see.
So they're not intended to be in any way a conscious addition. They are intended to be a permission.
Right, like an entry ticket.
Right.
And so grasshoppers and mantids on the planet, Fred wanted to know if they were related in some way. And they were related in the way of like...
Our brain can interpret them.
Our brain can interpret them like a cell of their toe.
Like the flying turtles.
Flying turtles, yeah. But the sense of permission slip, Inelia talked about that. Permission slip to engage in human.
So
or in Gaia.
It's not so much, it's almost like allowance. It allows, it's not permission as such. The word permission and allowance are very closely related, but actually they're different. So, for example, if you had never, ever, ever seen the color yellow, and you didn't know it existed, and somebody showed you the color yellow, there's a couple of things that can happen. One of them is that you will not see it.
Right.
Right. And another thing that can happen is that you look at it and say, what the hell is that? Is that a being? Is that a fruit? Is that a tree? What is that? And this person will say, it's a color. Oh, it's a color? What's it called? Yellow. Boom. Now you can see it. Now you know what it is. It's the color yellow, right? So this is a way that we interpret things. So in a previous lifetime, when Larry was a Plains Indian, he saw these things in the sky and he interpreted them in his brain. He saw turtles.
Flying turtles.
Flying turtles. He saw flying
turtles. What else
turtles.
could they be? Turtles.
There's nothing else they could
flying.
Be. Right?
Right.
Nothing else that could be. And that's what came through. That's what he saw. So this time with the mantis and the energies, it's like an allowance to see them. It's like it allows us to see them because they look similarly to something that's here.
They're flying turtles.
They're flying turtles, right?
But they're really not tall black mantises. But our interpretation is that.
Because it's the closest thing that we can interpret. But it also gives the human interpretation mind the ability to see them because this looks similar to this other thing.
Right, that's quite funny because we think we're beyond calling them flying turtles.
Right.
And then we call them grasshoppers.
Exactly. Do you see?
We are so mad.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Right.
We're so advanced, we're just the same.
Yeah. So we might laugh at a native Plains Indian from Cotton how many hundreds of years ago.
Call them flying turtles.
Yeah, really? You
Come
call
on.
them flying turtles?
How many turtles you seen flying lately?
Yeah.
You
thought it was
silly.
a flying turtle, really?
They're really grasshoppers.
Exactly.
They're
Don't you know
turtles.
they're actually grasshoppers?
They're flying saucers.
Exactly. They're plates. They're plates. They're plates.
Jeez, get it straight, guys.
So what I understand you're saying is that in this case, the terrestrial insects provide sort of a framework for our mind to at least see them and interact with them because we get to put a name. You know, they are like the grasshoppers or they are like the mantis.
Yes.
Right. You got it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
I think in the regression I called it like the cell of their big toe or something. It's like that's how close they actually are to each other. Not very much. That's not very much. One of the cells off of your big toe is not very much.
It's not you.
There was a discussion in the session where Fred asked if will this interfere with your daily lives now because you've played this game to trigger an inquiry. So now we have this podcast. And you said that no, it won't happen because, and also there will be a time not very far when we will remember because it will no longer take over our life. And you go on to say, I don't remember the exact words, that if something is common, then it won't become an obsession or it can't take over your life. Mm-hmm. So what do you know about ETs becoming common not very far away in the future?
So what, to put it into context, unless you insert the clip of that.
And so when we go up to the ship, and it's likely that we'll probably have more visits again that we won't remember.
There's going to come a time not too far where we will remember. We don't have to not remember, but it will because it won't take over our life.
Okay.
Because at some point, instead of it being, oh my God, aliens or this, that, it's going to be common. So when it's common, it's not needed to forget it.
Basically, some people's lives have become
all about
their contact experience. Yeah. And our purpose isn't to be all about our contact experience. Our purpose was, as you described, more like to be backup power. Mm-hmm. So a life that's spent trying to convince everybody about the realness or explain our experience or go to the conventions and have that life path, that probably would be distractive because we wouldn't be gathered. We would be going all over doing that instead of what we're here for. So that's the sense where we're not going to make contact experience the center of our life and then continue and make this our life purpose, Mm-hmm. So that's part of the forgetting part of it, why we like to forget about it. But mm-hmm. One of the things that's not unique, one of the things that is common with human is curiosity, right? Mm-hmm. So despite the fact that we don't want it to interrupt our life, we're going to still want to.
Understand it
and remember it and figure out how to remember it, how to get around the rules. Here's the rule, don't do this, because if you do, then this will happen. Okay, well, how do we do it anyway?
Well, no, it's not that. The way I perceived it was, you're mature enough now that you won't fall into an obsession.
Right.
You're mature enough, you're aware enough, your mind is expanded enough now to understand it for what it is and not for it to become the center of your life. That's how I see it.
Well, she sees it from outside the fog. Inside the fog, yes, we did it. We bent the rules and we got around them. The trick worked. Yes. Now, try not to make it the center of your life. Okay, I promise. Can we go to a conference, honey?
Okay.
Okay. See how easy that was? It's all over. Never mind all the other stuff. We're going to conferences.
Oh, that's the context of my question, but you didn't answer the actual question, which is
when,
like not very far, the ETs will be common.
Yeah, that's part of being in the fog, out of the fog, right? Part of the in the fog is that you're separate from everything. Part of out of the fog is you're not separate from everything.
Right.
From the supercomputers that create you're not separate from everything, then everything that isn't you isn't excluded. The input from having a universe full of life, it wouldn't create supercomputers that create fog. So a long way of looking at it, when the fog is less, the separate is less, then everyone's relations or helpers or aliens or however you want to think about them are less excluded from real, and then they're common. And when they're common, it's the same as like I have a dog. You're not going to go, well, some people do go to dog shows and all.
They do, yeah.
I mean, you still can do that if you want, but it's not going to be like, oh, you have a dog, that's going to take over your life. Although that does happen. I don't know how to answer your question.
So Mercy. Would it be fair to say that the more connected we become as we step more and more out of the fog, that it will be obvious that we are not alone in the universe, and that
I think this now I think about it, I remember the specific nature of this group being able to visit had to do with them not being overloaded sensory by fog, negative overlay on the planet and stuff. They're too sensitive to even want to come here, let alone can they. So as this environment changes, that becomes less
so can I give an example?
Yeah, go ahead and do that, because I'm kind of stuck here.
So many years ago, I was on a hike and with a couple of friends, and we went through a part of the hike, the path, and there was a wide open door to the world of, we might call the fairies. The veil was very thin there.
Right.
The world of fairies where trees talk and all these type of things. And when I looked at it, well, I went through and there was an experience that I had, right? It was very shocking to me. It's like, okay, we're going to burn you all, kind of. Now we can take over because the veil is so thin now. We can take over like the human collective that promote darkness and destruction and death wanted to do that to that realm, right? But from this perspective, this side of the veil, those same people were doing their utmost by putting heavy metals all over nature to keep those gates closed, because they knew if they completely dissolved, those veils dissolved, the whole planet would turn into high frequency. Because the planet's covered in trees.
Right.
So they were doing their best to block that from happening. Right. But the natural and normal, and what's in all of our cultures all over the planet, is that those realms exist. So in a Western upbringing and everything else, that's all fantasy and they don't exist. And the normal is plants are just wood, they're not conscious. And, animals are not conscious, they don't have feelings or thoughts. We can eat them or beat them up, it doesn't matter. Right? This is that very, very disconnected aspect. And to me, when it said it would be like more common or known, is that now we know that those realms do exist. We know that animals are sentient. And we know that plants have feelings. We know these things, right? So that's the difference. And as you know these things, you can actually connect with your animals in a way more healthier way. You can connect with the trees in a more healthy way. You can have all of these interactions and knowings in much healthier ways.
Yeah.
Do you see? So there's a level of awareness that permeates through our consciousness that then makes it normal. Rather than, oh, well, will they be able to come in? So they can't come in because it's too uncomfortable for them.
Just particular ones.
There's particular ones that Larry and Fred were visiting with. For them to come into, like, visit you at home to have a cup of tea they would kill them.
You remember?
Because the frequencies and energies here right now, especially with all the 5Gs and everything else, and the waves and the artificial mechanizations that they're using to increase negative frequencies on the planet, it would blast them out of space. I mean, they wouldn't be able to survive it. And that's not unique, because a lot of people are extremely sensitive to all those things too, and they can't stand it. There's some people who live in the middle of the forest and they can't go anywhere near a city because of it, right? So we have humans that are like that too, but they're like that on steroids. Like, they're very sensitive, so they can't come in.
I realized that I interpreted Larry's comment to mean that the contact with other ET species, and not necessarily in a physical way, but just the experiential telepathy, will become so common very soon that Larry's experience would be nothing unusual. He would say like, oh my God, last night I visited a ship. And your neighbor would be like, oh?
Yeah, but that's part of the other. It's not any misinterpretation. That's the explanation of why that will be common. You see? Because they function within a very high frequency, and all of our allies on the universe, including all the other human beings, or the majority of the human beings in the universe, are of a very high frequency nature, right? So as we raise our frequency, it will be common and knowing, and nothing unusual for us to be in touch with them all the time.
Right.
Because that's why I gave that example of the woods and the veil being thin there, and then the technologies to close it down. Because what happens with those bariums and aluminiums and heavy metals on trees all over the world, it becomes very uncomfortable for those beings in that frequency to be in that presence, right? To step into where those things exist. It's like very, very, very uncomfortable, makes them sick. So they're not gonna.
Yeah.
So yeah, at some point it'll be so common it will be unremarkable.
Yeah.
It could still be interesting. I guess dogs works now. You got dog? Cool, I got a dog.
Yeah.
You went up there, you have who's your friends? Oh yeah, I've met those before.
Yeah.
I have friends like that.
Yeah.
They fly in turtles.
Everybody knows that. Right?
Everybody knows,
yeah. They have giant turtles.
They have giant turtles. Giant flying turtles. Still cracks me up.
The next session of the next part of the session, there's a lot of talk about the trauma that's caused to the physical body by these visits, and in particular by the sudden shift of reality, like one moment you're in bed and the other you're on a spaceship. And I wanted to ask Larry if at any point in listening to the recording, did you make any connection to Sherry Wilde's book, The Forgotten Promise? Have you guys read that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have read that, and she does share a similar experience of being traumatized.
Yes.
She first goes, and then at some point becoming comfortable, and then having to do that experience every time, repeat it over and over and over, and never getting past that experience. It's always been a trauma. And then I think also having a regression at some point, and accepting that it's happening at a level, and then at this level of conscious talking about it, you know, saying that it shouldn't be terrifying. But it reminds me of Inelia's experience with the small people that dressed up in dresses. Yeah, it's like, you could say all you want sitting here, how are you going to be? That isn't going to actually be how you're going to be, because guess what?
We just appear suddenly in front of you, you're going to be terrified. I said, no, I
it'll
know
be
you
fine.
guys. I know you. My entire life I've known you. So of course I won't be terrified. It's silly. So they materialize in front of me and my body screams and runs away, and I'm trying to stop her and it won't. Runs all the way downstairs to the kitchen, you know?
So being as rational as you want, and have
Your
all the data
body
from here you want, it didn't change anything. They still had to go through that process.
And I like snakes, right? I've always wanted a pet snake, but it's a moment that I wanted to touch one and hold one, my body freaked out and said, no way, it's not going to happen.
I think part of it is that you're not just the now focused part of your life. You're many, 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 many things focused right here, right now. But all of those things are a component of now, but not all of them are conscious components of now.
Right.
Most of them aren't.
And even talking about the experience of the other night and everything, it's like I've been very in contact with Larry's body and trying to calm him down continuously, because his body was freaking out just talking about it. But he wasn't freaking out. I mean, he was talking and appearing normal, but his physical body was totally, his pulse was really high. His hands went freezing cold. He was fidgeting and he didn't want to do it.
Right? Didn't want to do the regression. Like,
didn't want to do this now. He didn't want to talk about it now. That's why I keep holding his hand all the time, because his body was freaking out. Finally, I managed to get some warmth into his hands, right? By calming him down, right? But it's been continuous trying to get his body to settle, you know, because his body was like freaking out. So it's like, it's a physical body reaction that's traumatizing. Right? Yeah. But there's also the soul part and the combo. Who's the boss, right?
Yeah. What about those moments when Larry shared about his last days of his life in those two past lives?
That was interesting, wasn't it?
I was surprised the way you were sharing, like, so cool. So now listening to Inelia about the reaction of your body, how was it then when you were sharing, your death?
Well, from that regressed theta state, you know, it's similar to the been on the ship for a while and your awake state. You kind of enjoy the experience, but the body trauma manifested later the next day and the evening and the next day after that as very, very unsettled, honestly. Very unsettled, very
settled, upset,
very, and all of my energy depleted. I couldn't walk up a hill. I couldn't do anything. I kind of like felt not myself, out of sorts. and I don't know what's wrong. Something's wrong. I don't know what's wrong. I can't figure it out. I just not myself. Don't want to cook. I don't want to eat. I don't want to nothing. But the boss of me says, we're going over there. We're going to make this water work.
We're going to climb that hill.
We're going to climb that hill and fix that water. We're going to make that water work. And the water's going to break. And we don't care. We're going to fix it anyway. And so to some degree, it kept my body busy with that. And that project was we got a new house on the hill and it had no water. So we decided, Dan and I, system so that the water will work, from starting with a whole bunch of things broken down, like a big junkyard. And we're going to put all those parts together and make water happen in the house everywhere. And we don't have any idea how it's hooked up or how it was hooked up, but there's a lot of stuff here. So it's going to work eventually, maybe. Half of it's underground, half of it's in a fallen down house, and some of it's over here and some of it's over there. So in other words, like I used what used to be called distraction, but we call refocus. I refocused my body parts on doing a job. And I didn't mind that the job was, it's not a world-shaking job. Let's make water go out the sink. Mm-hmm. But there's plenty to involved with it. And it happened to keep itself breaking no matter what we did. When we fixed this part, that part bust. We fixed that part, that part stopped. Fixed that part, this part needed adjustment. So it was a never-ending little process of staying engaged and just make the water work. Come on, make the water work. Come on, let's make the water work. It was a bit of distraction from a refocus from dying and being taken on a spaceship and having a mission or a process or a task or a giant thing that's outside of your control, inside of your control. You can control it, but within the fog that you're controlling in it, sometimes you do the wrong things. And every time you're responding to things, sometimes those reactions are not what we were hoping for. Let's just say they weren't the ideal outcome. How are we going to adjust it? It's a bit like the water. I just made the water be a tangible thing to focus on. But no, it was not a traumatic experience to share it, but the trauma I felt in my body on the next couple of days, very, very real.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it would be fair to say that when these regression sessions happen, that the soul is generally curious and willing to explore, but the physical body not so much.
Hey, the body was happy, just
quiet. So I don't know the process that they used because they didn't record it, because that's part of, you don't want to go into a session every time you listen to it.
Right.
Oh yeah, put other people in it.
Right. So when I do one of these, I talk to the body, right, directly, and I say to the body, right, okay, so while you're remembering this, you're going to look back. You're going to look back, but you're completely and utterly safe. You're completely and utterly safe, and I'll make sure you are. And the body just goes and relaxes, right? And then the person can have that memory and everything without the trauma. So I'm thinking that maybe that part of it is not part of the Dolores Cannon methodology to talk to the body directly, because I don't even know if she knew that there was a difference between a physical body elemental and the soul. I don't know if she knew there was a difference, right? So because I do know, and I know how bodies react, I always address the body too, right? And make sure that the body feels safe, relaxed, and know that everything's going to be just fine. And the soul's going to be exploring things and remembering things, but not to worry about it. They're not going to die. They're not going to do this. It's like everything's going to be just fine. Yeah. And usually that doesn't happen. They have a little sleep and they're like refreshed and nice, But yes, it can be very traumatic for the body, because the body sees all these images and things that the body doesn't know about whether what's real or not. That's why, for example, great athletes, they visualize and daydream themselves winning. And because the body doesn't know the difference, it programs the body to win, right? So, yeah.
later on in the session, there's an interesting discussion about what is data and what is interpretation of the data. And it is where you talk about the fifth eye. And I think you mentioned that the data that he gets is correct, but the way he interprets it is very colored by him not having recovered from the traumatic experience. So he's very paranoid. Everything is from the dark side trying to get him.
I think we'll play that bit.
Yeah, that was quite hilarious.
Have we ever interacted with him when we went up in there on different?
No, he's a crabby old fucker in the corner.
Oh.
No, we don't. So yeah, but no, you know what I mean?
Oh, so we've been there at the same time as
yeah,
him,
but we don't really interact. He's a crabby son of a bitch. He's super paranoid that something's hurting him, gonna hurt him, you know.
Okay.
And no amount of calming him, talking to, nothing of that helps, because he believes everything, even the us, are them, but in a suit. So his paranoia it's excessive.
It's excessive because it makes him put an overlay of whatever's happening there as the rulers and controllers of the dark side of what's happening on the planet right now.
Now, that was hilarious. That made me laugh so much.
I remember we were listening to the regression, and every now and then she would start cracking up laughing. Oh my God, that was funny.
Why is it funny?
Why is it funny?
Because it's a grumpy old whatever, and the way that Larry describes it.
So I remembered there was someone in their ship. I couldn't remember who they are, but they have really short hair, kind of look like someone, but I don't know who it is. But it's who it turned out to be.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's who it is. And why I wasn't.
And everybody just leave him alone.
Just leave him alone. Pretend he's not there. Don't interact with him. Let him be.
Yeah.
Because we have figured out over time, if you try to mess with him, he'll
turn against you.
He knows Aikido. He will get you.
He'll get you. He'll kick you.
He'll kick you. He's very well trained. He has a lifelong experience with these arts, and don't mess with him.
Yeah. So that's when the mind goes to, and he admits, that he has paranoia, schizophrenia, and that's his condition, right? That's his condition, and he has managed to live a productive, full life with that condition by being able to use it as his own tool.
Use it as a tool of inquiry.
Right.
He knows that his perceptions are a bit off, but that's a tool that he uses to ensure he's getting correct information. So he just assumes all the information is incorrect, and then he tries to correct.
Right.
Find it's correct. Prove it one way or another.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've noticed is that he kind of does know that these beings are positive, benevolent, and they gave him the data, the information on how to do his data scans on the internet and other things.
How to program.
Yeah. And then at the same time, he tells how he fought them and he argued with them.
Yeah. Yes.
And every now and then he falls into that, they're all, communist and they're going to take over the planet. And so he fluctuates in and out of the knowing, right? But that he admits it and he knows why that happens to him, right? Mm-hmm. But say if you sent him this podcast and say, hey, you were there in the ship and everything's cool and this is what it is. You live nearby and blah, 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 he will say, those people are communists. They're trying to take over America, right? Because that's what fluctuates, the mindset, and it's not quite wired in properly. That's how I see it. And that can happen through drugs or alcohol or sometimes traumatic events or physical injuries that can happen, right? That the wiring gets a little bit off and there's like noise in the interpretation or even the data that makes you misinterpret things, right? So a lot of people will be the opposite, that nothing's wrong. Nobody's trying to attack you. Nobody's trying to do harm. Nobody on the planet is bad or evil. Evil doesn't exist. We don't give it a name, even though
it's just as delusional.
It's just as delusional as schizophrenia. It's just as bad and negative, but nobody gives it a name because it's not a sickness. It's not an illness. It's just a way of seeing the planet, a way of interpreting things, right? So with him, and I found it hilarious because of the way that Larry expressed it, it's like, it was hilarious.
It was from plenty of experiences of doing it. Yeah. Because, it's not a doing to us. It's a we're a part of.
Yeah.
And when we're a part of, we're trying to make it work good.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to make it work good. We need to respond to what we're experiencing and seeing. And then we find that everyone's experiences are different even.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what's going to work for most of us? What's going to work for all of us? What's the consequence of it? These kind of things. It's like, how about if we talk to him after? How about if we, explain things in a way that he can, like, nope, that didn't work. Nope, that didn't work. It was like accessing the experience of doing it was hilarious to me. It's like, oh, no. Just leave him be.
Alone.
Don't go near him, whatever you do.
Look at him, like acknowledge that he's there because he'll kick you. And then you'll come back, not with your hair parted out with your black eye,
You wonder why you were sore? That was why. Kind of that.
Then why would someone like Cliff High continue this visit? Because he doesn't seem to become aware enough
it's in those
visits to become functional.
It's not about becoming aware of those. No, it's absolutely not about becoming aware of those. Fred and I didn't become aware of those things because
it's necessary.
We're supposed to, or it's necessary, or you need to, or any of that thing. We became aware of it because of our nature.
Yeah.
Our nature is to be curious and to push the boundaries and to do what we're not. Well, my nature.
Supposed to do.
Do what you're not supposed to do, and gather allies to help you figure it out. Yeah. Because despite whether it's good or bad for me, I'm not allowed to. Well, I want to.
And allowed by whom? By himself.
By myself. Well, I'm going to trick myself.
Yeah.
This is the nature of my inquiry. I'm not better or worse. I'm different.
Yeah.
My different manifested itself in this sense of I found Inelia and I used the tools that she brought to the planet to process my fear of bears eating me every night, getting lucid in my dream and processing my fear in my dream of these bears eating me. And through that process, I neutralized, I guess, in a sense, that control over my entire life, which was very, very destructive.
Yeah.
It created alcoholism, abuse, all kinds of negative, low frequency outlets through fear, dominating my conscious life, So having processed that moved me to a space where I could be more conscious about the experience. And in that, I want to maybe figure out how I can have a bit of a memory about it. So I've been investigating, how do you get memories about this stuff? And I don't know, we read about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't know how many books
about these things.
And I could only get half a page.
He'd fall asleep.
And then what would I talk like? I'd be talking like
he would be reading, and then the person went up, and then they went into the ship. And while in the rock, like Larry, I can't talk.
My mouth isn't working.
My mouth isn't working. My eyes.
My eyes are rolled back.
The book on his chest, Like, okay. Put the book away, put the legs out. He was out.
So that experience for you, Inelia, made you curious. Like, so this is obviously a powerful firewall that we should process to see what's behind it. Or that's a dangerous way to go.
There's no danger. There's no danger. To me, it's just funny. Ilia, this is normal
for her.
For me, I have to repeat the same thing over and over 10,000 times, and maybe on 10,001, the person will have an original thought about whatever we were discussing the past 20,000 times. So that somebody has a firewall and it doesn't want to look at something, to me, it's Tuesday, right? It's normal, regular. It's what people do every single day. So why would this be any different? It isn't.
I have no idea what you're saying. Like, it's the first time I ever hear you say that. Who are you again?
Who are you?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
All right, that makes sense. So my kind of continuation to I don't know.
Yes, you don't want to go. She's hungry.
Oh, first food over there.
I don't want it.
Of course you don't want it.
So Larry, you already mentioned this in the beginning that you don't necessarily know or care that the data is true or not. But did you have any sense of truthing it? Maybe after you listen to the recording, you see.
So what I meant by that was I'm not
trying to prove them.
I don't have evidence to prove it as truth, and I'm not going to. If I had it, I would probably use it. I don't have it, so I can't. So I'm not. I mean, I can't right now, so I'm not going to make it my life's mission to prove it by factualizing it. I did research some of my past memory stuff to see if I could connect the memories with a place, an event, or a thing. So, yeah, as far as truthing it, I think that's probably evident in the way that the information came. It wasn't, I couldn't make it up. Mm-hmm. Didn't feel like I could make it up. That way that the answers came didn't come across as I'm making something up.
Mm-hmm. And also, you said that there was no dissonances, right? When looking at the information, there's no like, yeah, that doesn't sound quite right.
Yeah, it wasn't the sense of, how would I make up something to answer that question? It was a sense of, let's look and see the answer. Here's the answer, and here's the answer expressed. Oh, that's what it was. Yeah. It was a surprise to me too. I don't know if you've ever made anything up, but is it a surprise to you what you made up? No.
Wasn't it a surprise to notice that Inelia was not there with you on the ship?
Let's see if that was a surprise. No, I didn't think that was a surprise. It wasn't a surprise to me because I've experienced life with her now for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and it seems to me that the predictions you might have about her, they're just not right. You might think this or that or the other thing, and I haven't found those predictions to be accurate usually, because it's not something you're ready.
It's the color yellow, right?
It's the color yellow that you don't know. So I'm not surprised by things like that anymore. It's like, oh, of course she's not here. Why would she be here with me when she's always here with me? It was interesting to me looking at from that perspective, that higher self perspective, and hearing my answer of how to interpret her as being. That was kind of interesting. And even then I could tell that it wasn't, it was try to describe yellow when you don't know what yellow is.
It's a pineapple.
Yeah.
So Inelia, how did you feel when you heard Larry saying in the recording that Inelia serves Gaia?
It's true, but it's not exclusive.
I noticed a slight dissonance with the word serve, and I know you've talked about service, the word service, a couple of times. Maybe there's a good article around this.
Yeah, so the serve would be like, to me, the way that I saw that sentence was, I drink coffee because it serves me to wake up in the morning. Right? Like a utility.
Right. This is an English language,
right?
Romanian language thing, type of thing that we need to work, because there's many meanings for the same word.
Serve is also used to become a slave, to be a slave, to be in service to.
Which is not what the word is.
It's not. It's like Inelia serves a certain role for Gaia.
Yes.
Right? And it's true. Sometimes I describe myself as Gaia's little pinky. Right? In a sense. You can pick your nose with your pinky.
No, you can't.
But it's pinky serves, right? In a way that balances the hand or whatever.
Serves grasping, serves holding tea. It serves
pinky,
showing that you're
a posh
hoity-toity. Here, show me hoity-toity.
Actually, I can't with this, but if you have a glass, right? if it's a glass, then
so you balance it out, right? Pinky serves to communicate.
To communicate. It's not actually. It's because it balances the glass.
No, it serves to communicate your hoity-toity.
Okay. So, do you see the difference of the word? So, for me, it wasn't dissonant.
But what was dissonant was the interpretation you gave to the word.
Right.
There's the dissonance.
Right. There's a dissonance with the interpretation, but also the exclusivity. Mm-hmm. So for Larry, he's Gaia-centric, right? And for me, I'm not Gaia-centric. I serve in many roles to, or as many utilities to many collectives in the universe.
Yes.
Many collectives in the universe, not just Gaia, not just the human collective, not just the angelic collective, not just these ETs, right, that we might call mantis, not just whatever others, right, not just cat collective or tree collective or the weed, the grasshoppers or whatever. So it doesn't really, it's not limited. It's almost like
not singular.
It's almost like, I remember once different groups of people at the same time communicated with me via a call or emails, different calls and different emails saying, I'm living with my individuals in both communities. I'm living with my soul family now. I found my soul family on earth, and we did an exercise and we found out that you're part of our soul family. Both of them. Mm-hmm. And I said to both of them, you're absolutely correct. I am. Because I am the soul family of every single human being on earth. Everyone. As well as every other collective on earth. I'm the soul family of dogs and cats and whales and birds and trees and plants. I'm the soul family of planets, Gaia, and every other planet in the universe. I'm the soul collective of gods. All the gods that you can possibly imagine, I'm their soul collective, part of their soul collective. Right? I'm the soul collective of every single bug and spider. I'm the soul collective of every atom on the universe. I'm the soul collective of every particle, of every spark of light. I'm the soul collective of all of those. So it's not an untrue statement.
But it's also not exclusive.
It's not exclusive or limited to. Do you see?
Yes.
Some of those collectives are louder than others.
More demanding.
Very
much more insisting.
Right. Like the human collective in Gaia. They're very demanding and very insisting. Right?
When Fred asked if Inelia is on the ship, he said that Inelia is an ally, but she's not on the ship with us. But our intents are aligned. And I understood between Inelia, Gaia, and this group of beings, and you, Larry, and Fred. And I'm not sure I understood that correctly, and what you mean by your intents being aligned. in Inelia being an ally but not part of the group?
Well, she's not on the ship because the purpose of the ship is to create a condition that is similar to the one that already exists with Inelia. She doesn't need the ship or the device or the implants or none of that shit.
In fact, I can go further and say the implants are very, very primitive.
They're
and
primitive.
My frequency blows them away. That's why people get like their devices burn off and go away, because it's almost like I was telling Larry, it's like, let's say you have a radio from the 1920s in the house and you have it plugged in. It's 110 volts here in the United States. Maybe in Europe it will be 240. I don't know I don't remember what it is.
Yeah.
And your radio will work great. Now imagine if you plug it into 1,000 volts. What happens to that radio?
Well done.
Exactly. Goes right, and it's over. The radio's over. So this technology that they're using, it's a highly advanced technology, but the frequency is like, when I'm around, it's like plugging it to 1,000 volts rather than 110 or 240.
Right. So the analogy I used to try to describe or explain it was that we're on the Earth in the fog and they're halfway to the moon outside of the fog.
Mm-hmm.
And Inelia was 10,000 channeled, not channeled, but 10,000 beings of incarnations all the way to oneness and beyond, and a direct link straight to the planet. So her access point outside of the fog is how many moons passed. And you can't describe or understand how many moons passed. You can't even really conceive of how many moons passed, but there's something you can use, 10,000 people's focused intent, and all the way down to focus from here, all the way up past oneness and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of how I described it. So
right.
She doesn't need to be on a ship so that she can compress her awareness down to a tiny little bit between here and the halfway to the moon. That's not going to be better.
And to express a little bit more about that nature, I have to again remind people, and I've talked about it thousands of times, every single person on the planet is like that, but everybody chooses to be limited in order to have experiences here in bite-sized pieces, right? So I'm not exclusive in any way or form in that sense. Everybody's like that, but the difference is that I don't have those amount. I have some, but not the same amount of limiting awareness programs running as everybody else on the planet. I have less.
Yeah, many of those are the consequence of all those incarnations of eternity's worth of beingness consolidating into how do you want to focus your attentions. Those things are a part of your focus of your attention, and she doesn't have that same thing.
Right.
So that allows a different perspective.
Of course, I have limitations because otherwise I wouldn't be able to function as a human being. So those are necessary, or a function in the 3D world. They're necessary, but they're not to the same degree that everybody else has on the planet. They're less. And that's why I'm not in the fog and I'm not outside the fog. The fog doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. Or I am the fog, whichever way you want to see it. Right? Whichever way you want to see it.
So when you're talking about these devices or implants, it will be like me pretending I can't walk, so I can invent a wheelchair that's really fast. But ultimately, I don't really need it, and I could run past the wheelchair way faster if I do.
Exactly. Yeah. And some of the things that, because Larry lives with me and his implants were blowing up left, right, and center.
Badly. Oh my
really
God, it was
bad.
the worst uncomfortable.
Yeah. So some of the process has been for them to upgrade their devices so that they don't blow up in the different voltage, right?
So
I used to go to bed at night and literally be tortured. My nose would be big and red and irresistibly itchy and driving me nuts. glad that's over.
Yes.
We had to get that thing out of there and figure out a way to shield it or something. But I can't live like this.
Yeah.
There is a discussion about that in particular at the end of the session, but I want to go back just a bit where Fred asks, can they help us with a free energy device? And I was like, yes, finally the free energy question. And the answer that he gave was, absolutely, but not right now, because it would be counterproductive right now.
Pointless.
Why?
Well, just look at it. What would happen if you invented a free energy device tomorrow? How many times has that happened? First of all.
Many times.
Apparently many times. How come it doesn't get around? What happens to the people who bring it or invent it?
They agreed to it being suppressed.
Like, yeah.
In different forms, yeah, they do.
And so if you plug into the wall, what happens right now? You got electricity.
Yeah.
Electricity goes out, what do? You start your generator. The generator goes out, you go buy some more gas, you get a little solar thing. For your life right now, it's not going to make a giant impact.
Free energy?
For it to make a giant impact.
No, you would still use the same technology.
Do the same thing with the same stuff. You just plug in and the plug-in would go somewhere else. Instead of to the dam or to the generator or to the solar battery, it would just go to a thing different. What would bring it? What would someone else who makes fog do with that kind of device? And when I say fog, you know what I mean by fog? In our interpretation of fog, that's our word for creating a...
If they have those free energy devices, how many places could they place 5G towers, for example? Or how many undying cell phones could they spread around the world that don't need plugged in?
Don't need plugged in or charged. How much decentralized fog generation could they create? Yeah. So the devices and the abilities and the things that they have currently, the technology they've already suppressed, it stays suppressed almost like in an agreement. It's like, you know,
not yet.
Not yet. Pretty when soon. It's time, sure. Now it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's a distraction. Don't need it. Let's just put that off the board.
You didn't get it. Hey, I disagree.
You're allowed to disagree.
Of course.
And you can try and dig and get it. Yeah, definitely. I'm just passing the data that I received because, of course, I felt and wanted and agree with you. Yeah, fine, dandy. We don't need it. I want it anyway. I'll use it for something great. Whatever, you know. I have that same urge and same desire and same wish. I agree with you. So they will help us with it. No problem. Not yet, though.
Okay.
It's almost like the frequencies thing, too. For it to work, you need to be of a certain frequency. You need to be at a certain frequency as a human collective for it to work.
Their tech, yeah.
Yeah. You know how their tech wasn't working when I was around, right? Mm-hmm. It's slightly different, like perspective, but it's very similar. In a low frequency way, it won't work. If you plug in your radio to 5 volts and it's 110 volt, will it work?
No.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
because we're set up already right now to accept a voltage.
Yeah.
That isn't what that thing makes.
Right.
That thing makes different thing.
Yeah.
It's the energy source, but it's not 110 or 240 volts, and it's not even AC.
And I can tell you right now that there are thousands of people around the planet who are invented it, created it, and are using it, that technology. Mm-hmm. But with a deep understanding of don't spread it. It's going to create more harm than good at the moment to spread it. And us being public figures, guess what's going to happen if we get one of those at home? Right?
Nothing at all.
Nothing. He's not going to tell anybody.
He's learning.
Yes.
That's how we got our hair parted the wrong way and woke up in the morning. Yes. Okay, we'll figure it out. I got it.
Right. So did you get your questions? How are you guys feeling?
I have one more question about the healing part at the end of the session.
Oh, okay.
And maybe it's just the protocol that Fred was using, but he was asking to do the body scan, and Larry would spot some issues, and then Fred would ask, "Can you fix that right now, like for the knee or for other things that would bother you?" And my curiosity is, who was the you that was being asked, because it didn't seem to be the physical body. So who was Fred asking, "Can you fix this right?"
I'll continue the body scan down mouth, neck.
Neck is good. Lungs are good, finally. Heart's good. Liver's good. Legs are good. Knee.
Right knee, left knee.
Right knee. Still got a little damage.
Mm-hmm. Can you fix that right now?
Let's see.
He said, and at one point in the regression, he asked for permission to speak to my expanded higher self. So he would be speaking to my expanded higher self, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
And that sense of awareness has an answer to why things are that aren't the same as the regular in the fog sense.
Right.
That's experiencing the limited world. Mm-hmm. So my normal, regular old consciousness is experiencing the regular world, despite the fact that I'm co-creating my experience of the regular world. And I've set up limitations to box in my experience of life to the way that serves my reason for being here, despite what my in the fog person might scream or say he really, really wants. Because he really, really wants that. He really, really wants this. He really wants that too. But we're not here for that. We're here for something else. So it'd be better if you don't do that. But if you do that, it might be a little harder. It might be a little this, or it might be this, or it might be that. Or it's like, let's try to navigate ourselves back on path, or, go ahead, have a visit, but come back. You can go to Hawaii, but you can't live there. Mm-hmm. Those kind of things.
And it was interesting that the answers that you gave to some that you being the higher self gave to the questions was that no, you're not going to fix the right knee, for example, because it's a useful limitation at the time, keeping you from doing lots of physical work and therefore creating time to do podcasts like this.
Right, because if my focus was on let's get our house ready, and this is all the stuff that needs done, and I get up at 5 a.m. and have some coffee and run out of here. And Inelia doesn't wake up she might wake up at 5, but I don't usually wake up at 5. Nobody would here make the breakfast. Nobody would be here to do the things that I do that makes life good for us as a couple, It helps, I think, create the space for her to do the things that she does. It helps for us to create the things that we do together. It helps that I'm not like on a fishing boat gone for a week, and then I come back and it takes 2 or 3 days to reacclimatize, and then get back into the rhythm, and then I leave again, and it's a constant state of disruption. Well, similarly, if it's the same thing about fishing with my body. If I have a healthy body that can take a lot of strain and effort, and I can also go fishing. Right now I can't really go salmon fishing too good because every time I kneel down, it kind of hurts my neck. I have to make accommodations for that, and then stand up weirdly and grab the fish and lift it up, and then try different muscles and, get around it. It's just not as effective. So it's less enjoyable, and it becomes more tedious, and I don't really want to. If I had my choice, I would rather so it creates the situation of, if I had my choice, I would rather be with her doing what we're doing things like right now. That would be what I'd rather be doing, because the other is less comfortable. It's a little bit of limitation self-imposed to create outcome, like her hand and playing her music. Sure, fixed hand to be great, but then guess what I'm going to do? It's irresistible. I really, really, really like it. And she'll start playing her guitar or whatever. Then she'll marry a traveling bard and be singing music on the stage somewhere. And in all of us.
Oh my God.
See?
We are not going to let that happen.
Well, that was a great recording, I think. Are you guys feeling complete?
I think about 1/4 complete.
1/4 complete.
We could go for 2 more hours.
I know, but it's not going to happen. So if you're interested in the whole thing, just go to Subscribestar or work with me now and you'll download it.
You get the entire regression. You get the whole story as it was experienced.
Except for the personal bits of people
minus the personal bits of the people who are involved who haven't been talked to. Right.
Yeah.
And
you can do the previous lifetime part and the hair thing.
Yeah, and just keep it to yourself. It's between you and I.
Yeah. Don't share it or publish it anywhere else.
Yeah, it's private information that you have access to because you're one of our tribe.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
That's the purpose and the point of our second hour.
Yeah.
Of our driving to the res is, we'll just have a conversation between us, frankly, honestly, and including all of the stuff that we might not be comfortable saying with everyone at the gas station.
Right. Yep. That's good. I like that.
I like it too.
You feel complete, darling?
I do.
Okay.
I love you.
Love you. Now you have to do it.
Okay, your turn.
Love you.
Love you.